Hey, and welcome to Homeschooling 101, Basics for Parents Before You Start. My name is Abby Banks, and I'm a former middle school, public school teacher, now homeschooling my 5 kids. So I'm deep in the trenches, but I've seen both sides. I've been a classroom teacher, and I'm convinced more than ever that parents are uniquely qualified to teach their children. You're probably watching this because you're kind of interested in homeschooling or you're considering it, and you might be wondering if you can even do it. You're probably thinking, I don't know if I'm patient enough. I don't know if I can handle having the kids home all day. Well, I hope in this little series about basics for parents before you start, you will get all your questions answered. If at any point you have more questions, feel free to email me at abby@4onemore.com. Today's video, we're going to jump into some key objections that are pretty common in parents' minds, and you have to get out of your own objections before you move on to some other topics. So today we're going to talk about some common objections, and I hopefully will show you that they're not as bad as you think. I want to send you over to a really awesome post that I have gathered tons of resources and links and all types of information. If you're new to homeschooling, I want you to go to 4onemore.com/new, and you're going to get a ton of help there. All right, let's jump into today's topic. Let's talk about 4 objections you might have in your mind. You might be saying, I'd like to homeschool, but, and then as soon as you say that, there's something on the other end. Let's talk about the first one. I'd like to homeschool, but what about the time commitment? You're imagining 8 o'clock till 2 o'clock because that's what your kids in public school are doing. And you're thinking, how am I going to do that? Maybe you work on the side. Maybe you have volunteer commitments. Maybe you have multiple kids and you're going, how am I going to do 8 to 2 for every kid in my house? Let me just tell you that traditional school timing is not what homeschooling's like. And in fact, if you homeschool, it should not be a replication of public school at home. Homeschool doesn't take as long. It's more efficient. You know, you have every teacher's dream, which is the one-on-one tutoring approach. It's just much more efficient. Your kindergartner is not going to spend 8 till 2 doing kindergarten work. It might take an hour on a good day, and that includes read aloud time, that includes playing, that includes listening to a history lesson or doing some math concepts. It's not going to take that long. Remember, you've been to school. You know how much time is wasted. There's administrative stuff, and there's busy work to keep 25 kids busy and quiet. You don't have that in a homeschool. So I want you to realize the time commitment is there as far as you need to be invested into the time that you are homeschooling, but it's not going to be 8 to 2 every day. You're just living life. A lot of K through 8 is read alouds and life skills and being around together as a family and learning new things together. The older kids are independent. My high schoolers are just off on their own. They are so efficient because they know if they get their stuff done, the rest of the day is theirs to pursue, to work, to pursue their interests and their hobbies. And I want you to realize, as far as the time commitment, that your role as the mom will change. When your kids are younger, it is a lot more intensive because they need you. They don't know how to read yet, and you need to help them along. It's also not going to take 6 hours a day. When your kids are older, they might take 5 hours a day getting through all their subjects, but you're not going to be next to them the whole time. You're more of a coach. So I hope this shows you that the time commitment is not something to be scared about. That's number 1. So maybe you're saying, I'd like to homeschool, but here's number 2. How do I juggle multiple ages and grade levels? For most of our early homeschool journey, we had 4 little boys within 5 years of each other, and every subject was done together except math and language arts. Because why do you need a different science curriculum or topic for each of your kids? If they're all in elementary school, even up to 8th grade, you can easily homeschool them all together. If you're learning about the human body, you read the lesson, you learn the stuff. Your kindergartner has a certain amount of expectations. Your 5th grader definitely has some higher expectations. They may have more assignments leading from that, but you can all use the same topic, the same curriculum. You can do most of the learning together. And so this is not a big deal. Honestly, we have loved homeschooling together, multiple ages, because you can do art together, history, social studies, foreign language, music appreciation. You can do all of these things together. Now, of course, math and language arts, they're grade specific. Language arts would include spelling, grammar, phonics, reading, writing. Those things are grade specific. But if all you have are 2 grade specific subjects and the rest you can do together, can you see how this makes multiple ages and grade levels not as much of a problem as you originally thought? And I've already mentioned that in 9th through 12th grade, the kids are really independent because they're working on the subjects that are also grade specific to get on their transcript. So don't worry about how you're going to juggle it. I don't think it's ever been a problem for us. In fact, we loved homeschooling together for many, many years. And until my kids spun off into the high school years, all 4 of my boys who were growing up together did all the subjects together, and it was awesome. And it really was easy on me. It wasn't a big deal. All right, let's hit number 3. I'd like to homeschool, but am I qualified to teach my kids? Now, I know the professionals are going to probably try to tell you you're not qualified. Listen, I've been on both sides. I was a public school teacher. What did I learn in university in order to be a public school teacher that you don't know as a parent? Probably classroom management skills, maybe how to grade on a curve, like statistics for grading and all this sort of thing. Honestly, if you went through the public school system and if the public school system says it's so great, shouldn't you be qualified to teach your young kids at least? I mean, what's wrong with the system that you went through if they're telling you you're not qualified to teach your first grader? That's a little crazy. Now, remember, you're teaching them one-on-one. You're not managing a classroom and coming up with a lesson plan. There are so many great curriculums that are open and go that make it really easy for a homeschool mom. You don't have to know everything. I want you to realize you're working one-on-one. I want you to realize you can learn as you go. I want you to realize that when your kids reach high school, you can outsource their learning and still homeschool. I want you to know that there will always be gaps. If this is scaring you, realize you had gaps in your education. Did you learn everything there was to know in math or everything there was to know in history? Of course not. No one does. But if your goal is to raise lifelong learners, your kids will be just fine. Here's number 4. I'd like to homeschool, but what about socialization? Okay, this is such an old question that homeschoolers everywhere just kind of cringe because I think it's been put to rest, but let me just talk about it here, right? Socialization. Okay, when in your life will you be confined to a room with 25 of your peers? That's what public school classrooms are, and that's not real life. You will never do that. If you get a job, if you're in the workforce, you're going to be working with all sorts of ages and stages and all different types of people. Homeschoolers have the option to interact with everyone in a community. And honestly, you get real life experiences when you're homeschooling. You're not stuck in a classroom all day. Most homeschool parents I know are very active members in the community, and their kids are fine with socialization. You know, socialization that occurs in a traditional school setting is normally negative. So as homeschoolers, we get to have the positive social interaction. You know, if you're worried about your kids being shy and, you know, they need to get out and experience social skills, you know, if you're introverted or extroverted already, your schooling style isn't going to change that. So no matter what, socialization is not something that should stand in your way of homeschooling. I'll give you a final example as we end this point. My high schooler has figured out a way to get his time commitments in, to get his high school credits, and do schooling from Monday through Thursday. Then on Fridays, he works at a local insurance company. He works with grown-ups. He answers the phone. People interacting with him think he's an adult if they're just emailing him or telephoning him, because he's learned those social skills. So here's my homeschooled high schooler who is not stuck at home. He's actually working a real job, and people think he's an adult because he knows how to have a conversation with adults and work in a real work environment. So that's just a little example that this question, what about socialization, is not something that should hold you back. So I'd like to homeschool, but what about the time commitment? What about the multiple ages? Am I qualified to teach my kids? And what about socialization? I hope I've been able to show you that these issues are not something that should keep you back from homeschooling. Check out the next video and we'll keep this conversation going as we explore the basics that you need to know before you start homeschooling. Don't forget to check out my huge post at 41more.com/new.